Hey everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. It's Monday, Mishmash Monday. Couple things to talk about today. Few good subjects we're going to get to. We got a lot to get to today. First off, good news. My barber called and he wants to settle out of court. So that's always good. Secondly, I was in touch with just recently a good friend of mine who stumbled upon the show. A friend of mine from, believe it or not, when we were in Boy Scouts, I met him. And you know, it's funny how Boy Scouts, a lot of my long-term, lifelong friends I met in Scouting. It's such a great organization. So anyway, his name's Tommy, and Tommy was watching the show and whatever. And then his daughter Casey has a kind of a boutique, and she sent, and Tommy sent over some of these great Scoutcrafter merch. So check this out. I got it the other day in the mail, and as you can see here, it's Mishmash, Scoutcrafter Mishmash Monday, followed by Scoutcrafter Patina Patrol, and then of course Scoutcrafter TGIF. And how great is that? And these are nice heavy-duty t-shirts. Casey does this as, you know, as her business, and it's just a great thing, and I really wanted to put out a special thanks to Tommy and his daughter for that. It was just really special. But the other thing I want to tell you is, it's funny, I was thinking back about, you know, when we were younger, and one thing I always remembered about Tommy, he had such a great car. We used to love old cars, you know. You know, we grew up in blue-collar families. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, and you know, my town, it wasn't like a wealthy town. And so, you know, there wasn't a lot of new cars going around, but a lot of us, when we were growing up, we would get old cars and fix them up. Now, I remember Tommy had such a great, he had a Buick Grand Sport. What a car that was. It was such a sweet car, and it was, and I always remember, the one thing I always remember is how his car, it smelled so good in his car. You remember that when we were younger? You know, it wasn't like those little pine Christmas trees. You know, you would go out to make your car spotless and waxed up, and we would go up to this place called the Monument, and we would hang out, wax our cars and clean them up. Our engines were clean, and it was a lot of fun, you know. And I don't know why a lot of, especially in my town, they don't do that anymore. You know, kids have no interest in fixing up old cars, but I mean, that was it. We were in love. My first car was a 1968 Cougar GT XR7. I'll never forget that. And my dad got it from a friend of his that was sitting in a garage for a long time, and paid $250 I paid for that car. And it was 10 years old when I got it, but you know, come on, it's just a nice car. And I was just wondering if you remember your first car. I'm sure you do, because you know, your first car is almost like your first love. It was so different back then. I remember sitting in my dad's car in the driveway and imagining what it would be like to have your own car, you know, and you know, sitting in that behind the steering wheel, and sometimes he would let me move it up and down the driveway. It was different back then. I couldn't borrow my dad's car. He needed it for work, and last thing he wanted was, you know, my gorilla hands on his car driving around, and God forbid getting in an accident. No, that was off limits. You know, if you wanted to drive, you had to buy your own car, but he was able to get me a nice car for only $250 back then, which, you know, it was still cheap even back then, and I had that car for a long time. Loved that car. Just put in the comments if you can, what was your first car? Because I bet you we'll have a lot of cool cars in there, and you know, and some of them, you know, some cars were wrecks, your first car, you know, but it doesn't matter. You loved it just the same. It was freedom. Those good old days, huh? So let's see what we got to get to today, and see what we got going on. You know, this week we're going to be doing the Scissor extravaganza. I promise you, you will learn things about scissors you never knew before. Hopefully I'm going to try and get that together Wednesday. So for today's project, I just got a quick one we're going to clean up just to get you in the mood. Let's check it out. Okay, well, it really doesn't get much worse than this, right? Let's take a look here at what we got. Deep rusting all the way through here. This is just, look at that, huh? I mean, that is just disgustingly bad. But I'll tell you the truth, it's not like it's chipped up or anything. Let's throw this in the vinegar And we'll be back in 2 days. Okay, here's stage 2. This is right out of the vinegar. No wire brushing or anything. You could see we got off all that surface rust. They're starting to look a little bit more respectable. And you could see here, and now we could see the name. And you could see it is a WISS brand scissor. And it says inlaid. You see that right there? And now we'll go and wire brush it. Here we're at a post wire brush evaluation. You could see here, you can see we got a tremendous amount of scaling and pitting, and well, the handles we don't worry about because we cover them with paint, but they're really not in bad shape. But over here we will have to address this with the grinding wheel, and you can see over here this one too. You can see the model number. It is a 22W, and you can see again, but this should clean up nicely, but it is a hard metal, and you can see the inside too. You know, we'll just scout over that, just nice and easy. We don't have to go much. Now, the bolt is a 5/16 by 24 threads per inch, and I'm not crazy about the shape of this, so we'll try and get another bolt, and then we'll see what we can do. Okay, we're going to be starting on these now, and you can see here it says these are WISS inlaid. You see that says inlaid? Now, what that means is, you know, to have a quality scissors and really high quality, you need to have good steel. Now, what WISS has done for years is they get really high quality steel and they bond it to a regular standard steel like here. Okay, so only the edge, and you can see the color line here, especially since we soaked it in the vinegar. You can see that edge runs right across here. That is the inlaid. You can see it right there. That's the inlaid steel. That's good steel, really good steel. And this way they can keep the cost down and still have a quality scissor. That's not an angle on there. That's straight across, but that's the different steel in there. You know, a couple people have been asking me about a suggestion for a buffer for the shop, especially one if you want to use the fiber wheel and maybe some buffing disc or anything. And this one here, suggested by Joe's Shop, really is a fantastic. I've had this now for a few months. It's nice and smooth, not very expensive, and it really works well. So, if, you know, the Power Tech, if you're looking for a second buffer with just to run your fiber wheels or something like that, this is the one to look for. Now, we're going to be using the only 5/16 by 24 thread bolt I have is a hardened bolt, and hardened bolts come with the markings on top. That won't look too good in the shear. So what we're going to do is we're going to grind this off with the you know, the belt sander, because this is hardened, and then we're going to round off the edges just a little bit, make it a little bit nicer, and we'll put that in the drawer. I'll show you how we do that. Here's a quick tip. Sometimes you'll have to you cut off a piece like we are here. We have to cut off a little piece of that bolt, the tip. Now, in order to do that, you got to put it in the vise. You put it in the corner of the vise. It's never a good idea to cock the vise with too much pressure on here, so it's always a good idea to take something with equal diameter, put it in the other corner, and this way you could crank down on the vise without worrying about cocking the vise and doing damage to your vise. So have an equal and opposite piece on this side, and this way you can crank down on that little edge over there and not worry about damaging your vise. Now we're just going to do a quick touch up on sharpening, but let me tell you something here that you know, I don't like the platen on my belt sander for the simple reason that 99% of the time of the things I'm working for have a slightly rounded edge. So when I address the tool to the belt, you can see it gives a nice finish. Whereas when you have a platen, it doesn't give as desirable as a finish. So that's why I usually remove the platen. However, there are that 1% of the times when you would like a platen, and for sharpening is one of the times. Because here is, let's say this looks like the edge of the scissor, okay? Now remember, we want the sharp edges, that when you get that 90-degree edge or whatever it is, that's the edge that does the cutting. Now, if I press this against the belt, it softens the edges. That's what you want when you're doing a tool, but you don't want it when you're sharpening an edge. So trying to, without the platen, when I press this, it's going to soften this edge and soften this edge, because the belt will go around it like this instead of just, that's why a stone is preferable for doing edges. Now, what you want to do is, we have the temporary platen that was suggested by one of the subscribers here, which works really well. You just take this like this, you put on here, and now that's a temporary platen. Now, when I put the edge against here, it won't, the belt won't flex, and it'll give me a nice sharp edge. So that's how we do the scissors real quick. Now, this is another reason why you want to have a bunch of old scissors to practice on, because, you know, this is something, now the way I showed last week with the drawer filing, that's the way to go when you're starting off. If you're going to do it like this is going to take some practice, and you're going to need a bunch of scissors because you might ruin a couple. But what you want to do is here, if you remember about the edge over here, you have to get the angle. Now, if this would be a 90-degree angle, and this would be 20 degrees up, more or less, just like that. It's not crucial, but if I wanted to cut material, I might go up a little bit. If I want to cut like linoleum, I might go down a little bit. You know, this is where it gets to be fun. You know, you can customize your scissors. But you can see that the grind doesn't start to here, so we don't have to take the scissors apart to do it here, but I would touch it over here. Now, here's the key. Once you get that right angle, you will touch it and drag it like this across. Touch and drag. Practice with the belt sander off, because this way you get your body memory ready. What I like to do is lock my elbows against my side, press it against, and then just move my whole body to the side, and that gives a real nice, look at that. It's just a perfect, I'm not wobbling it back and forth as if you're moving your arms. Lock your elbows against your side, press in, move to the right, back up, and repeat. Now we're going to have to make a nut for the other side of the scissor since it was missing. And what I like to do is I have a little drawer here, and that I always throw my scraps. If I have small pieces of aluminum or something like that, or small piece, whatever I have, I throw scraps, because you never know when you could use a piece. And sure enough, I wanted to make it out of brass, and here's a small piece of brass that we can make a nice little nut from the side of here. It already started, you can see here. So what we'll do is we'll, you know, chuck this in the lathe, we'll drill it out, tap it for 5/16/24, and then we'll put 2 flats on each side, and you could do that with the file, or, you know, and then we'll have a nut. Okay, I always swear by getting these sets here. This one here, we need a 5/16/24 right here, which uses an I, a letter I drill bit. So we'll get that, we'll drill and tap that hole. Now, believe it or not, sometimes it's easier to part off a part with a small hacksaw than it is to try and use a parting tool. Now we're going to take our little nut, put it in the vise, and we're going to file it across and make 2 flats, one on each side. And here's our little nut with the 2 flats on each side, and it's a little more difficult than it looks, but it is very rewarding when you get something that looks nice. Hey, just a quick note, it's only 2 weeks to the Scout Crafter Challenge, the Tool Tote or Tool Caddy Challenge. You only have 2 weeks left. I know when I give you a month, we all say, we procrastinate. We say, I got time, I got a month, you know. It's down to 2 weeks. If you're going to put out something nice, it's going to take you a while. You know, paint's got to dry, varnish has to dry, you know, glue has to dry. Every time we have a challenge, there's always somebody that's knocking it together the day before. So don't be that guy or girl. Okay, remember the 15th. Let's get on. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what these WISS scissors look like before we started. And we're calling this project done. I would say we saved this one from the trash. You know, scissors are considered a consumable item, and when the blades get a certain point, or you're supposed to toss them and buy new ones. But look at these, what we were able to do with them. First of all, we had to keep the name, you know, obviously we couldn't go to a full depth, but we were able to keep the name both there and there. You can see this says WISS, and you can also see inlaid. You know, we kept most of it, but in order to get all them pits off and everything, now again, you don't touch the inside of the blades, because once you get rid of that hollow grind, you know, you're SOL. The back here, we made that little brass keeper. Now all that does is, because this piece is threaded here, so when you put that bolt through, this just locks it down so it don't loosen up over time, and that was missing. They usually had some kind of brass ornate nut on the end of these scissors that made them look a little bit more expensive. We'll be covering that during the week. This week, actually, I'm doing the Scissor Spectacular. I hope you tune in for that, because that's really... and then we painted this here with the Rust-Oleum. Now, listen here. Give it a little quick sharpen. Let's take a look here. Regular. I do a lot of paper cutting, and you could see it, you know, it does it really nice. It's very good like that. Cardboard is very easy to cut usually, and you could hear and you could see the edge on there. What a nice job it does. Again, these were kind of almost garbage, you know, ready to be thrown out, but we saved them, right? They were a nice pair of scissors, and they're good shop scissors. I wouldn't think twice about using these for cutting, let's say, linoleum or, you know, other things that might, you know, you don't want your really good scissors for, but that's the fun of taking an old tool, bringing it back to life, and I think we did a good job with this one. This is a WISS 22W. So in closing, special thanks to Tom and Casey for those awesome shirts. I just love them. Also, if you happen to be looking for an idea, I just saw a fantastic video from my buddy, Time Flies in the Shop. He put out a great video on getting ready for the Scout Crafter Challenge, the Tote Box Challenge, and he had some fine examples that he dug up from I don't know, his father's garage or something. You got to check it out. I'll have a link in the description. Check out that video, and I'll give you some great ideas. And you have to see that last tote. That last tote just blew me away. You'll see what I'm talking about when you see the video. And also remember, if you can, to put in what was your first car in the comments. So we'll get a kick out of seeing what your first car was in the comments. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Take care now. Bye-bye.